Who is that one person in your life you can always depend on? For me, it's Barbara Thompson, also known as Mummy, or Mom. When I was around 8 years old growing up in Kingston, Jamaica, my mom, standing about 5'7", with long black hair, would often warn me in Jamaican patois, make sure you don't go outside, which meant do not go outside. She was always a strong disciplinary force in my life, and I was a free-spirited kid who loved adventure. In our backyard, and sometimes our neighbor's backyard, were my kingdom. So I needed to check in daily. It was only right. I would wait for the perfect moment when her attention was no longer on me, then quietly make my way to the back door of our house, and slowly and carefully open it so my siblings wouldn't hear and inform her that I was sneaking out yet again. You see, I loved running around barefoot in my backyard, feeling the earth beneath my feet grounded me. Climbing the ackee tree, the mango tree, or the soursop tree made it seem as if I could defy gravity the higher I climbed. But when the breeze blew and that tree swayed, I would hold on for dear life. I also really enjoyed spending time on the rooftop of our house. At times, I would lay on my back and watch the airplane soar across the clear blue sky. I felt free. I would often imagine being on one of those planes traveling to far-off places. But of course, my daydreams were often interrupted by my mother yelling my name. Rick! Oh, here we go again. If you want to see a Caribbean kid get down from a rooftop or out of a tree in record time, just let one of their parents call their name and there's somewhere they should be. That will be some of the fastest movement you ever see. Reflecting on those carefree days, I never imagined how life could change or how we'd lose the things we depend on. In December 2013, I enlisted in the United States Air Force as an aircraft armament system technician, also known as weapons, loading munitions on the F-16, bombs, missiles, chaff and flare. During my 4 years of service, I was stationed in Germany for 2.5 years, worked in Poland and Greece on temporary duty assignment, and deployed to Jordan for 6 months, aiding in Operation Inherent Resolve. Military life shaped me, but it came with a sacrifice. When I separated from the military in 2017, I decided to move back to New York to live with my mom and siblings while I figured out my next move. There was something reassuring about saying, I'm going back to mom's house. No matter how uncertain life felt, I know I could always depend on her open arms. But after a while, she'd remind me, hey son, you gotta go back out there and face the world. My mother, always encouraging, always strong. She was a school teacher in Jamaica, and when we migrated to New York, she continued the profession. She was disciplined, yet nurturing, structured, yet full of warmth. One day, she left for work as usual, but didn't come home at a normal time. At first, we weren't really too worried. Maybe it was a school trip or something she had forgotten to mention. But no matter how many times we called her phone throughout the rest of the day, it would only go straight to voicemail. This created an uneasy feeling in the house. The next day, a nurse called and informed us our mother had been admitted to the hospital. My heart dropped. My siblings and I quickly got dressed, rushed to the hospital, and when we arrived, we saw her sitting up in bed with an oxygen mask over her face. She looked tired, but calm. She didn't say much. Eventually, the doctor walked over and asked her if it was okay to share with us what was going on. She gestured and nodded it was okay. The doctor said, your mother is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they were only giving her a few months left to live. I couldn't accept that. This was the strongest woman I know, the foundation of our family. I believed she would prove them wrong. I watched my mother fight to remain with her family for a few months. But a few weeks after her 65th birthday, she released her final breath. Losing my mother while struggling to adjust to civilian life left me devastated. The life I once knew no longer made any sense. One might wonder, how do you recover from that? To be honest, I didn't know how. For those 4 years that I was in the military, a mental shift was taking place, and it started immediately in basic training. I can vividly recall our military training leader passing down a lesson he learned when he was also a trainee, which was, shut up and color. Meaning, do your duty even when the circumstances are less than ideal. More simply put, your emotions are insignificant. Focus on the mission day in and day out, which suits the military environment and gets you through the day. Therefore, I adopted it wholeheartedly. From basic training onward, I learned to suppress emotions. Whether it was loading live bombs in the Middle East, leaving close friends behind with every reassignment, or them leaving me, or paying respect to fallen comrades, the mantra was always the same. When I separated from the military and returned to New York, I realized how much I had been depending on that structure to guide me. And without it, I felt lost. When I tried reconnecting with old friends or even family members, it seems they no longer understood me, nor I them. The military shaped me. It had failed to prepare me for my return to civilian life. I was now struggling with adjustment disorder, depression, and anxiety. I dreaded going outside and found solace locked in my room in the dark, listening to motivational speakers over and over. The loss of my mother in March of 2019 only deepened my pain. It was as if life was testing my resilience, throwing everything it had at me to see if I would break. And for a time, I did. Libby Pearl, a housing policy specialist in congressional research, stated that veterans dealing with adjustment disorder, anxiety disorder, PTSD, and those who have served on active duty are at an increased risk for homelessness in comparison to the general population. The 2024 Annual Homeless Assessment Report released by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development indicated that over 32,000 veterans were experiencing homelessness within the United States. In 2019, I was one of them. With my unaddressed military trauma tied with the grief over the loss of my mother, my thoughts became jumbled. I was no longer thinking clearly, and I lost my sense of direction, ultimately sleeping in my car for a few months. My turning point came when a fellow veteran from Long Island University Brooklyn campus introduced me to Decruit, a program founded by Army veteran Stefan Wolford. In one of our lessons, Stefan said something that stuck with me. Veterans are militarized, but never demilitarized. Those words hit home. I realized I had been trained to depend on the military for everything. Discipline, purpose, and a sense of identity. But I hadn't learned how to rebuild those things for myself. At first, I doubted the program. Using Shakespeare to help folks fix my issues sounded like utter nonsense. But I was desperate to find something or someone I could depend on. Over time, Decruit gave me that. It taught me how to use the iambic pentameter, a rhythm pattern in which Shakespeare writes that mirrors box breathing. Stefan guided us through revisiting challenging memories, writing them down and then saying them out loud, once comfortable. However, just before our emotions reached their boiling point, we'd switch to our assigned Shakespeare text, expressing those feelings through his words. To be honest, at first it felt strange. But gradually I began to depend on the process, becoming vulnerable in front of people I once considered strangers. This process of emotional release was transformative. Inspired by Decruit, I enrolled in a one-year acting conservatory at New York Film Academy. Acting became my new foundation, something I could rely on to help me confront my emotions and rediscover my purpose. This journey led me to write and publish my memoir and self-help book. Today I can confidently say that the tools I have found, acting, storytelling, writing, gave me a second chance at life. It taught me how to depend on myself again. Now, healing through acting by no means was an overnight journey. It required time, commitment, and the willingness to be vulnerable. When I first started at New York Film Academy, I felt out of place. Most of my classmates were young, vibrant, and hopeful, untainted by the ills of life. I, on the other hand, felt nervous and doubtful. But I mustered up the courage to step into each character I played in class, boldly. Let me just say, I know. It's not easy to revisit painful memories or to open up in front of others. But I assure you, with every small step you take, you grow more confident and stronger. One of my most transformative moments came after graduating. I auditioned for the role Nelson Green in the play Wedding Band, a love-hate story in black and white, written by Alice Childress and directed by Owoye Timbo. Nelson was a young soldier on leave from the army who would soon return, leaving his beloved mother behind once again. Rosalind Coleman, the actress who played my mother, gave me something I never thought I'd have. A second chance to say hello and see you later. During rehearsals, I drew parallels between my character's grief and my own. Speaking his lines out loud felt like releasing a weight I didn't realize I was carrying. Over time, acting became more than just a tool for healing. It became a way of life. It allowed me to reconnect with my emotions, process my experiences, and rediscover a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just performing on stage anymore. I was reclaiming my identity. Research, conducted by Helen Cahill, an expert in drama and education, and studies by Bernard Raddick and others, highlight how drama-based intervention can serve as a powerful tool for healing and emotional expression. The science confirmed what I already lived. By stepping into different characters, we can externalize our struggles, process emotions we suppressed, and foster personal insight that lead us to emotional recovery. Throughout my journey so far, I have learned that we all need something we can depend on, whether it's a person, a passion, or even ourselves. I challenge each and every one of you here today to find a creative outlet that resonates with you, whether it's acting, writing, painting, music, or simply sharing your story with someone close to you. Or a complete stranger walking down the street, just stop them and say, hey, I got something to say, and just start talking. Creativity is a powerful tool. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Who is that one person in your life you can always depend on? For me, it started with my mother. But along the way, I've learned to depend on my creativity, my experiences, and ultimately, myself. Find your foundation and let it guide you to the life you're meant